Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week from Superjoint is singer Phil Anselmo. This episode brought to you by the Heavy Montreal Festival, taking place August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean Drapeau this year, featuring Korn, Faith No More, Extreme, Lamb of God, Doc and Warrant, and a whole bunch of others. And my co-hosts on this episode are from the Killer Dwarfs, a band that should be on Heavy Montreal, by the way, Daryl Dwarf, and from Talking Metal, Mark Striegel. Good day, boys.
Hey, how are you, Mitch?
Good.
Hello, Mitch. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, Daryl, you know, we've had Russ on, we've had Jerry on, but you've been elusive. We finally got you like a deer in the headlights, right?
I don't know. I guess so. You don't want too many dwarfs on a show. It might curse it.
No, but it's good to, well, you know, listen, we had a lot of dwarves out of the Whitesnake show recently, and that was a great time. So
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was nice hanging with you. Thanks for. That was actually you that set all that up. So
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
I bought you breakfast, man.
You did, and I quite appreciate that. Now, the reason why I need a dwarf on this episode is Phil Anselmo of Pantera. You guys toured with him back in, I guess, 1992 on a bill with Skid Row.
Right.
And believe it or not, Phil not only remembers that and talks about it in the interview, he swears that he's a fan of the band, that he bought the first album. He shares a birthday with Russ, and just an all-around good time and a good moment for him. So how was it for you?
Yeah, well, you know, that tour, you know, we've done a lot of tours over the years, and that tour will always be, I don't know, just have a special spot because it was at a really strange time in rock and roll history, number one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just finished Method of the Madness. It was our last record we did with Epic. Grunge had just hit. I mean, it was just about to become explosive and be huge. And really, frankly, you know, metal was on its way out, and you could feel it, you know. I could feel it. And, you know, we got on that tour, and that was really our last tour, a real arena rock tour we did before we were kind of dropped from Epic. And, you know, it didn't take much longer till we kind of dropped right off the radar for a few years. So seeing Pantera for the first time for me was like, right away I knew that these guys weren't a grunge band. They were in the metal genre of rock, but they were cutting edge into a new direction, mostly Dimebag's guitar tones.
Yeah.
It was just like right away, it was so crunchy and heavy, and they were just heavy, like very heavy. And I just knew, these guys are going to be pioneers cutting a new direction for, you know, the metal era, I guess, of the 90s. And you know what? They were. And,
Yeah.
You know, that's my take on them.
Yeah, and they almost didn't fit on that bill, right? When you think about it, you go, oh, Skid Row is more melodic rock for the most part. Killer Dwarfs also. I mean, and then
You're right.
Then you have Pantera, and you go, because I remember seeing the show at the Verdun Auditorium in Montreal, and I had no idea who Pantera was because it was pre-internet. You didn't get a chance to check stuff out on YouTube. A band would show up that you'd never heard of, and that was it.
Well, to me, yeah, but true. But see, we're still metal bands though, Skid Row and the Dwarfs, right? So Pantera being so kind of new and cutting edge, they were good to be on the bill though, because it like it's hard for me to even say this, but like we were on our way out, kind of,
right?
You know, and so was all hair metal in general was on its way out, and these guys are like a breath of fresh air kind of on the tour, and just. I think the fans were just looking at them like, wow, just as I was looking at them like, wow.
Yeah. But so, it made me take notice. I had no clue. How about you, Mark? Were you aware of Pantera before that tour or at that time, or did you sort of find them later?
No, I was definitely aware of them at that time. I'd seen them play some smaller clubs in the New York area, in the city. And then I saw them come back and headline Roseland. I mean, I saw them in, 1990 through like 2000. I probably saw them 15 times in that time frame. And I never saw that tour with Skid Row
Oh, you missed a
and
good one.
Dwarfs. Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about it, and of course read about it in Russ in not Russ Rex's book. But yeah, I wanted to you know I don't know. I guess when they were coming out, I at first wanted to like them, but it wasn't like this initial thing they were one of these bands that took a little time for me to warm up to, just because they were a little. I listened to Metallica, but in a way, Pantera, especially with Phil's voice, at least where he went, with his voice musically, by the time Vulgar came out, it was just a little more extreme than, say, the Hetfield voice. So it did take me a while to warm up to it. But like I said, I wanted to like them, and I eventually fell in love with them and thought they
Right.
were just fantastic.
That's the one thing about Metallica, by the way, since you mentioned them. They're a thrash band, they're a heavy metal band, but they're one of the only ones with a lot of melody going on there. And James goes and sings with that melody, unlike Pantera, unlike Death Angel, where they just sort of scream all
Well,
over the place.
I would disagree with that
Okay.
personally. I mean, there's a lot of Pantera songs that I think are definitely melodic and have a melody, and sometimes that comes from the guitar, but I do believe that Phil has a very good singing
Oh,
voice,
agreed.
and
That I agree with.
I think he proves that on a lot of Pantera songs, because I don't believe it's just that, guttural hardcore thing. I do believe he has, when he started off on power metal, he sounded like Halford, and
Yep.
it slowly kind of evolved into something else. And that's the cool thing about Pantera too, is you really, they aren't a band that put out the same record over and over again. They really did evolve musically and go some different places, and they started on power metal and before power metal as basically a commercial hard rock
That's
band,
right.
with spandex and big hair and
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
saw
that.
those.
Aren't
Yeah,
those great
I
pictures?
saw those pictures in the magazines way back.
It's funny that you mentioned
And
Halford, by the way, because we talk about the power metal album, and he said that he would go home every night and put on Priest albums and mimic them until he sounded like Rob Halford, and that's what he was trying to do. So it's interesting that you picked up on that.
yeah, I mean, if you listen to, Cemetery Gates, for example, I mean, that's just such great singing on that. And I think, you can hear a Halford influence on that song, and especially going back to power metal, which is this weird record that they won't re-release.
Right?
And
They're embarrassed.
Phil said he's not embarrassed. I asked Phil when I interviewed him, and he was like, "No, I just wish it would be released. I'm proud of that stuff. I like that record." And I asked Rex the same question. I got like kind of a real wishy-washy answer, like, "I don't care about that record. Who cares?" So I almost felt like Rex was the guy who was more embarrassed by it. And it's like Phil, everyone thinks he's such this hardcore dude, but yeah, I totally believe he bought the Killer Dwarfs record. He likes Skid Row. One of his
Hmm.
favorite bands is Queen and Judas Priest, and he's loves UFO. He loves a lot of that commercial hard rock stuff. Sabbath.
Well, we're probably a little older than he is, right? So
Yeah.
that would make sense, because
Well,
we were around in that era.
Well, he's actually born about a month before me, so we're same age, late 40s. It's funny you mentioned the influences because we did talk about his different influences, and one that came up a lot was Morrissey and the Smiths.
Right.
And
Yeah.
of course, we talked about their song Cemetery Gates and how Pantera, in a sense, paid homage to the name Cemetery Gates by doing their own song. And we talked about him perhaps recording a song called Frankly, Mr. Shankly, like the Smiths did. He got a chuckle out of that. So a lot of influence talk. One thing I should mention for listeners as we get into the Phil interview, it's a two-part interview. As we were recording at 8 minutes into the first part, the power went off in my wonderful abode, and so we had to reschedule for an hour later. So you'll probably hear a little bit of a cut. We'll try to fix that as much as we can in editing, but There you go. So you get Phil at 3 o'clock and Phil at 4 o'clock. So
Wow.
you'll definitely get to hear that. But we get over an hour of interview time with Phil when we were supposed to have 15, or I was supposed to have 15. So it's a great conversation. And Daryl, stick around. We'll come back after the interview and we'll get a few road stories from the Pantera Killer Dwarfs Skid Row tour. There's got to be some dirt, right?
Yeah, there's some.
I'm sticking around for that. Here we go. Here is Phil Anselmo.
King Parrot's here, Superjoint's here, and we're all gearing up to hit the road together.
So, boy, so much to start with. Let's just get right into Superjoint. Band hasn't done anything for at least a decade. What made you decide that this was the time to get the brothers back together and playing?
Dude, well, okay, I'm going to try and make a long story short, which is very tough for me, but I was against it, really. I was past it. I was like, you know what, it's history. It's a thing that I did a long time ago, but last year's Housecore Horror and Film Festival, there was this big push to have it happen again from my now deceased and rest in peace, awesome, very sorely missed co-founder Corey Mitchell, and him and my personal manager and fiance, et cetera, just wouldn't leave me alone about it. I was, you don't know how many times I said no. So finally, as the festival neared, I said, all right, let me just see. Let me just bounce this off of Jimmy Bauer. Let me bounce it off of Hank. Let me bounce it off of Kevin Bond. And they were excited, surprisingly. They were, like, very positive about it. They were like, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And I think we all went into it absolutely knowing that we were going to move on from our old drummer. So Blue from the Illegals and War Beast, who also has jammed with Hank, Jose Manuel Gonzalez, my drummer, you know, him and Steve from the Illegals, who played bass in the Illegals, you know, we're ready to go because first and foremost, Hank bowed out because he's in the process of getting a part of his life settled, and he, you know, he's worked all these years to build his brand, and he's busy, and that's all there is to it. I spoke to him yesterday for about 2 hours, and he just gave us our blessing and wished he could be there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, man, when we got together and we jammed, it was fun. It was laid back. Everybody had grown up. I think this is the first time, truthfully, we had done anything sober ever. So it was like, wow, man, you know, this is kind of fun, you know. And, you know, after we did that one show, the offers started coming in, and, you know, it's like, why not? You know, it's fun. Why not?
It does sound like fun. So what does that mean in terms of your career with bands? I mean, are you going to keep doing Phil Anselmo and the Illegals, or now do you concentrate on writing new music for Superjoint?
I'm doing it all, brother. I'm doing it all. Down, obviously, has a new EP that needs to be written, plus there's more Down shows later this year in August.
Right.
We've got about 8 new Illegal songs. I'm breaking in a new guitar player. And with Superjoint, really, it's like, basically we call them the Super Illegals, minus Jimmy Bauer there, because everybody's in the Illegals now, including Kevin Bond now, who plays bass. So it's like I got time to do it all. Like I say, I always consider myself a free agent, and I can do what I fucking want to do, man.
Yeah.
And you know, that's create music, and it feels right, and it feels productive, man. And that's where I want to be, producing something worthy, you know.
Right. It's always couched in a band kind of format, though. Down, Superjoint, you know, Phil and the Illegals.
Yeah, they're all, but they're
why
all
not just
very
Phil?
separate.
Yeah, I know they're separate, but why not just Phil and Salmo? Why not just solo artists? You know, when Morrissey left the Smiths, he just became Morrissey. Why not just Phil?
Well, that's, you know, basically was the initial idea behind the Illegals, but I thought the Illegals were a cool name because of the sound of it. It sounds like like an oldies band or something, you know, like well, not even the oldies, but kind of like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, or
Yeah.
Diana Ross and the Supremes, if you will. You know, it's like it had that feel to it. But really, I guess that was the idea with the Illegals. But now, really, with the Illegals, it's like everybody contributes, you know, and I love that contribution. I love when people voice their opinions and give me some input, you know, give me some feedback, bounce stuff off me, and let's go from there. So really, I have no problem at all with the identity of different bands, because
Right.
to me, it's all very different, extremely different, you know,
Absolutely.
style wise, and they're also. How do I put this?
But is any part of it a little bit of fear where you say, okay, I'm going to put this album out, and if I put Phil on it and it fails, Phil fails. But if I put Down on it or Superjoint, you go, well, you know, it's the band that didn't do as well. Is there a little bit of that in it?
Oh, hell no, not
Okay.
even at all, because I realize, you know, Down fans, you know, it harkens back to the Pantera thing. You know, when
Right.
Pantera was my main band, at the same time, you know, whenever I would have time off, I would do Christ Inversion and Necrophagia and, you know, handfuls of other bands. So I knew, you know, one band is no fucking way were Pantera fans gonna like Christ Inversion, and vice versa. So it's like it really doesn't matter, you know. Each band is gonna garner its own audience, whether it's big, small, or whatever, and I'm happy with that.
You mentioned in an interview recently a band called Metraton Ganga, which is going to be this death metal band that you want to get involved with.
Metraton, it's pronounced in Ganga.
Ganga. Okay.
In Ganga.
What is that band, and when is that going to see the light of day?
Oh man, that's something that is in the works, and I've got some secret weapons that I'm using in there that shall not be named, and it's just a whole completely different expression of, I guess, my take on what true death metal should sound like, which is, yeah, it covers a lot of ground, because I love old school death metal that's simple, and I love very technical death metal, perhaps in the vein of Morbid Angel, all the way to Portal, you know. So, you know, taking all these influences from the past and the present, you know, I love my contemporaries. I love what the youngster out there these days that don't give a flying fuck about what's happening in the bigger picture of the world, or the pop culture of the world. They're the kids that are truly into the underground. I love finding out and learning from them what they're into, because there's always something it's the part of me that's always 16 years old that,
And that was part one of the Phil Anselmo interview. That's where the power shut off thanks to the thunderstorms in the area. Without further delay, let's get right into part two, picking up where we left off. Here's Phil once again.
So
right.
let's pick up where we were.
Yeah, so we were talking about the death metal band that you were working on.
Listen, I can't say too terribly much about. Are you recording?
Yeah, I am.
Good. I can't say too terribly much about it, but it's just another iron that's in the fire, and probably something that I would just do as a one-off, and and now that I've said that, next thing you know, I'll tour the whole thing. Jesus Christ!
You'll be doing this long tour behind the whole thing. While you were talking about the death metal, you were talking a lot about different influences and different bands in the metal genre that were influencing you. But I wanted to pick up with that. Your influences going back, all kinds of crazy stuff: Beatles, Jethro Tull, Peter Frampton, Kiss, Smiths, Morrissey. You're sort of all over the place in terms of your influences. What did those bands bring to you in terms of music and in terms of learning your craft? And because the music you're making with all the different bands down in Superjoint is all very varied as well. Tell me a little bit about your influences.
About what?
Talk to me a little bit about your different musical influences.
I hear you, man. If you had 2 hours to talk, I could answer this in full. But it's so many different. So many different bands bring something to the table as a listener and as a fan of music and all kinds of fucking genres. It doesn't have to be heavy to be, let me put it there, it doesn't have to be heavy metal to be heavy, really.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a hardcore band to be heavy. Heavy comes in all kinds of different styles, and maybe it could be a lyrical thing, it could be a musician thing. You talk about the Beatles, right there, it's like great, incredible songwriting, the strength of songwriting, and musicianship. You listen to Paul McCartney play the bass. That is that's a pretty mighty thing, man. He's an incredible player, and just I could go on and on about the Beatles alone. But then the extension of the Beatles, a band like Queen,
right.
They took it to a different level, and a guitar player like Brian May. Without Brian May, there'd be no Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen, and then later on Dimebag, and Dimebag was a huge Brian May fan.
Right.
And, so we were all influenced by a lot of different stuff. But me personally, I see magic in so many things, and whether it be excellent new wave or a great 80s pop, if it's great, it's great. Or if it was early death metal like Obituary, Autopsy, bands like that, later on Suffocation, and then the great Morbid Angel, and then modern contemporaries like Portal. It's all innovativeness that really piques my fucking interest and gets me deeply into these fucking bands, man. And how can it not influence you if you are a serious musician? And I consider myself a very serious fucking musician because, over the years, I've penned many a fucking songs in many a different style. And, fuck, man, I think as a musician, it's kind of your obligation to be an explorer. So here I am, man, in the midst of exploration.
Yeah, and I do want to take up on, you mentioned Dimebag, so I do want to ask you about Pantera, but the Smiths had a song called Cemetery Gates. Pantera had a song called Cemetery Gates. Bit of an influence there. Is that a song title that you were trying to bring into Pantera? It seems more of a Pantera title than a Smiths title, right?
Well, you don't know the Smiths that well then, because the Smiths, I would guess maybe at first listen with your eyes closed, it might sound light and flowery, but upon further exploration of Morrisey's lyrics, he's got some of the heaviest, truest, that is the magic word, and daring, and there's undertones of dark humor, there's serious songs, there's tongue-in-cheek songs, and that's, man, my writing style. I've been very tongue-in-cheek my entire career, but I think, you know, when I listen to Morrissey, you know, it's like there's no one better at it, man. I think his strength as a lyricist and as a deliverer, just absolutely incredible, man. So, once again, Jesus, man, I take influences from everywhere, man. I really do. And you bring up the Cemetery Gates thing. That was unintentional at first.
Okay.
And then I realized, oh my God, they do have a song called Cemetery Gates. But I thought it was, I guess, kind of cool at the time, because we were such a different band than the Smiths. It wouldn't seem like a blatant ripoff, you know. It's not like the songs are even similar at all.
They're certainly not similar. I just thought maybe it was a nod to one of your favorite bands.
It was. It became a nod, you know. Like I say, right at first it was not intentional, but it was absolutely, after a while, a nod towards, and a big nod.
Does that mean that you'll have a song called Frankly Mr. Sharkley coming out at any point?
That is my least favorite song. God
that and
damn,
Octopus's Garden by the Beatles are your two least favorite, correct?
Nah, listen, I just brought that up as a song that, you know, when I mentioned that, the Octopus's Garden, it's like, what I meant by that was that the Beatles could do anything. They could have rockin' tunes like She's So Heavy, and then they could do Octopus's Garden right off the same damn record, you know, and they're so diverse, you know. That's what I was getting at, was their diversity, and I cite them as one of those bands. But I also, if you listen to Queen and harken back to the Night at the Opera record, there's stuff on there, like the first song on the record, Death on Two Legs. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy tune. And then the very next song is a song called Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, which is this old-sounding, poppy, happy-go-lucky tune that, you know, it's like, is this the same record? And then you look at a record like News of the World, where, of course, there's We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. Off that record, there's a song called Sheer Heart Attack, which is pure punk rock feeling, almost hard rock, super hard rock guitar. But at the same time, on that record, there's a song called All Dead, which is really a ballad on the piano, you know. So these bands could get away with all sorts of styles, and still people got it and understood that, hey, man, you know, these bands touch upon so many different styles within one style, but still we you know, you listen to it and say, hey, you know, that's Queen, or if that's the Beatles, and that's that. There's not that many bands that can do that these days.
Well, in fact, that's sort of what you're doing. When people listen to Pantera and Down and Superjoint Ritual and all that, at the end of the day, they still say, "Hey, there's Phil," right? That's Phil's voice, and so you've got that kind of flexibility, I guess, as well.
Well, the recognition of the voice is that right there is a blessing. It's an honor because, I always tell people, people like what they like, and that's that. They dislike what they dislike, and that's that. It's like music's like food. Either you love it, hate it, or are indifferent to it. But when people can recognize your voice and say, "Oh my God, that is who I think it is," that's a mark of success. Some people can't stand King Diamond's vocals, but then I ask them, I say, "But when you hear it, you know it's him, correct?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Well, yes." And I say, "Bingo. You know what that is? Success."
Yeah.
And there you have it. Love it or hate it.
Now, we mentioned Pantera real quick. Back in 1988, your first album with the band was Power Metal. Tell me a little bit about joining the band at that time. Because Cowboys from Hell is the one that exploded, where people went, okay, this is Pantera. Power Metal was sort of a lost album somewhere between hair metal and wanting to be Metallica in a sense, right? What are your memories of joining the band, recording that album, and just the music in general from that disc?
Well, talk about being very young, the new guy,
yep,
and being tossed into the fire immediately. I think that I had been in the band 2-3 weeks, and all of a sudden I had a microphone in front of me, and they were playing this music, and they're like, "Write some lyrics for this and sing this." And it was just like that, man. Bam, 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 bam. So here I am with this group of guys who have, in my opinion at the time, a very limited scope of where they were and the music that they wanted to achieve. And, also understand they were very young at the time as well. So they were trying to find themselves without
and I guess
without my influence over them, God damn it, to be very blunt, because at the time, yes, they adored Metallica, but they liked Motorhead and they liked Def Leppard and they liked this ongoing bunch of bands that of course I love Motorhead and bands like that, but it's like there's more out there. There's more out there. So really, in the early days, it was like I was trying to fit in. I was trying to sing the way they wanted me to sing, which
crazy high, right? It was just incredibly high singing.
Well, you call it high, I call it Rob Halford worship, and I did it without. People confuse falsetto and high vocals. I never used falsetto.
Right.
I've never used falsetto probably anywhere in my life until the Great Southern Trendkill, and that's in a
96.
very vague way, in the middle of a verse somewhere. And that I was lucky to get that out of me because it's very quiet. There's no power there at all. And the thing about singing the power metal material was I could actually belt that fucking shit out. I used to come home as a youngster and after school, before my folks got home, and I would practice Unleashed in the East from front to back. And whether I sucked or not, I kept doing it till I could fucking do it. And not many people can say they could do that, you know, without either slipping into falsetto or still sticking with it to this day, which, it's a part of your throat that if you don't keep warmed up and keep doing it, eventually you're going to lose it. And I had no problem losing it eventually because it had already been done. It had already been done by one of the greatest heavy metal singers of our entire goddamn spectrum of heavy metal, which is Rob Halford, and no one does it better, and that's all there is to it.
No, he's the king. Now, you mentioned the word influence over the guys. From power metal to Cowboys from Hell, did you sit down with the guys and say, listen, this isn't working, we need to do something with more balls, or let me write something? What exactly do you mean by influence? Did you sort of help craft the sound from Cowboys onwards?
I'll put it this way. When I joined the band, they had no affinity toward, all right, case in point, no love for Slayer at all.
Right.
Zero love. And one of the first things I did was Dimebag came over to this house where I was originally living, with Rex at one point in time when I first joined the band. And I said, look, just keep an open mind, Dime. Keep an open mind. I know they play their leads out of key. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is the heaviness of the riff. And what we did is we took a couple tokes of weed. We got in that zone. I whipped out my goddamn copy of Hell Awaits. I put it on the turntable, and I put on At Dawn They Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat there, and he had this afro that he had at the time. He looked like a walking Q-tip, and an unraveled Q-tip. I was checking him out. We're listening, and slowly but surely, that damn afro of his started bobbing back and forth, and he started catching this jam to it. And right then and there, it was like, he actually listened to it. He dug it. He loved it. And he felt the power that I was talking about. And so I would sit there in my, during the week, and I would make mixtape after mixtape, and then there would be Black Flag, Saint Vitus, Slayer, Dark Angel, fucking hundreds of bands, and I would just make all these fucking mixtapes, and I'd always ride shotgun, and I would control the fucking cassette deck, and it would be like, all right, here we go, let's check this out. And I would just play it, and it would be like this, my own radio station, basically. And it basically, eventually would pound into their fucking heads. And it would, love it or hate it, whatever.
It would pound.
it left its mark. And
well, let me take...
Real quick, let me finish this, because
absolutely
the biggest turning point really right here was us befriending Slayer when they came down for their very first shows of the South of Heaven tour. And they came out, they were playing on a Saturday night. We were booked for a weekend at this bar, like right down the street from where they were playing. They got in a night early. Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman, and Tom Araya. God, I'm never going to live that down.
Tom Slayer's a much better name.
Anyway, they came out to the show. They got up on stage and played Rain and Blood with us. We knew a half-assed version. And then after that, Kerry King and I exchanged phone numbers, and he would call up every now and again in between tours, and what are you doing, man, this, that, the other. And he would come down and visit. Well, about on his second visit down or third visit down, he said, I want to get up and jam this weekend. Y'all playing this weekend? I said, yeah, we are. He goes, well, I'm coming, and I want to jam. So he came early in the week and got together with us, and we practiced. He learned power metal songs. He learned two different power. He learned power metal, and he learned a song called Death Trap. And we did a few Slayer songs, and we did some Judas Priest covers. And he played with us 2 full nights to an overpacked house, Joe's Garage there in Fort Worth, Texas. And I will say this, that was probably the most eye-opening experience for those guys ever, especially for Dimebag, because when he actually had to sit down and learn the real way to play Rain and Blood and all these Slayer riffs and whatnot, that's where he understood the power of a true thrash riff.
Right.
And his respect level and the rest of the guys' respect level for a genre or a band that they never liked before completely changed. So that was a gigantic turning point. And so I always cite that particular
event,
incident.
Okay.
And I also tip my hat to Slayer for the rest of my life for those moments and for helping, I guess, steer and direct Pantera into the band that we became.
Without using the word reunion, would you like to play again with Rex and Vinnie and record, using another name if it has to, but would you like to just get in the studio with those guys again and just make some new music?
Well, first and foremost, I would jam with Rex anytime he felt like it.
Right.
I adore Rex.
Great guy.
Do I want to play with Vinnie Paul again? Honestly, I could give a fuck. And I don't give a shit what people say. We're 2 different people with 2 different agendas as far as the music that we like. So I don't care about that at all.
Okay.
However, I will say this. If we went into it and I knew that Vince had an open mind, then I gotta say, to this day, Vinnie Paul is still the most talented, tightest, most awesome drummer I've ever fucking played with.
Right.
And when he applied himself to his fullest, case in point would be listen to the drum beat and his feet on a tune like Becoming. If I got that Vinnie Paul, shit, I would love to be in the studio with him. But even back then, getting him to really devote himself to playing that type of those complicated drum patterns was, I remember Dimebag and myself and Rex and everybody going, come on, Vince, you can do it, just do it, instead of doing the more simple beat or something like that. So he always needed a little bit of, goading into playing to his fullest ability, so, that's how I feel about it, and that's how the fucking goddamn boat floats today.
Back then, and in early 2000s, you had a lot of issues with your back. Your back was just a mess. Physically now, and you're also 15, 20 years older. How are you physically? I mean, is the back okay? Is there anything else going on? How are you holding up?
I am probably the strongest I've been in a long time. I'm 6'2" or 6'1" and weigh 225, and I feel thick. I feel strong. But I tell you what, man, every day there's always a challenge when it comes to chronic pain.
I know it.
I've broken more bones than I can probably count right now. Torn ACLs, torn meniscus, torn MCL in my left knee. And that always, especially this time of year, kind of aches, kind of hurts after a workout, hurts after going 12 rounds on the bag. There's always going to be soreness, but that's where your mind comes into play, and I always say you got to build a mental callus of toughness to keep on trudging forward, and that's where I'm at there. And, am I gonna feel these pains? Hell yeah. The older I get, some mornings you wake up and feel like you've been in a car wreck, but guess what? All it takes is a little bit of moving, stretching, shaking, and just getting on with the fucking day. Get on with it.
Does it affect your performances? Because, I saw you back in the day with, who was it?
Listen, I get you. I'm not going to be jumping off this fucking drum riser anymore. Right. I'm not going to be stage diving anymore. I don't have to. I ain't got to do none of that shit. None of that shit has anything to do with the songs. So
Absolutely.
As long as I get my fucking thick ass up there on the goddamn stage and fucking play these songs to the best of their ability, that's all I give a fuck about. Jumping around, and all that shit, I'll leave that to the youngsters. Fucking let them jump to their bananas. I don't give a fuck.
What about vocally now? Do you do anything, do you do scales to warm up? Do you drink tea with honey, or do you just get out there and you just sing as you always have?
It depends on the assignment. Like with Down, I have to take better care of my voice because there's a different style, really, than Superjoint or The Illegals or anything else I may do, because I do all kinds of shit that the world has not heard. I've got death metal bands, black metal bands. Yeah, I've done all that shit in the past. So it's like, with each assignment, you got to do different things to maintain. And if certain days you need tea and honey, that's what you do. If you need extra hours of sleep, you go to bed fucking earlier. And other than that, like with Down, you asked me if I do scales. Sure. Like if I'm feeling like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have stayed up so fucking late last night, and my voice is a little tired, and we're in the middle of 4 in a row. I will definitely warm up with scales, and yes, it helps a whole lot. So, whatever, fucking whatever it takes for the assignment at the time. And when I say the assignment, it is different bands, basically, is what I mean. Different voice, different styles of singing. I got to do what I got to do.
I see that we're way over our time. I mean, we were supposed to do 20 minutes.
That's all right, man. But if you got questions, go for it.
I do have a couple more. We were talking about Pantera before. What do you think, looking back on the history of metal, when you look back at rock music, you go Elvis and the Beatles and Kiss left their mark. What mark did Pantera leave? What is the importance of Pantera?
I think we destroyed everything that we eventually despised, which I totally despised, which was the club scenes and the projection of what a heavy metal band should be, with the long-haired lead singer that's untouchable and this big barricade of wall between the band and the audience. I think that we fucking totally trashed that, and we brought a hardcore mentality to heavy metal. And communication between the band and its audience, we made that completely cohesive together and go hand in hand, because early Pantera shows was very much me coming out and saying the first thing, our stage is your stage, just don't run into Diamond Rex, we're good. And boom, we would start, and so would the crowd, and they would be all over that fucking stage. Any bands that were opening for us or on the same tour with us were all on the sides of the stage, allowed on the stage, whereas today it's like, clear the stage, and the band's coming through, and security, and this, that, the other, and clear the stage, and all this shit. It's not professional. Fuck all that shit, man. We were like, yes, come up, and anytime you feel like it, come sing with us on stage. We encourage that. So I think we lent this freedom to our audience, this freedom of brotherhood between us and other bands that we toured with, that was very unique, very, very, very unique, and maybe that's our legacy. Besides the fact that we had great songs, a great guitar player, a great band, and a lot of charisma, so to speak, within the band.
Yeah, I think it changed the direction that metal was headed. I mean, we had all that hair stuff coming out of the 80s, and then you guys, from Cowboys onward, just changed the whole course. Now, I'll just circle back then to Superjoint, because this is a Superjoint interview after all. Where do we go from here? We talked about writing new music. When do you think that might see the light of day? Is it sort of just a one-off and then back to the Illegals, or is there a future?
I think there's always a future, and because I feel like I'm absolutely going to continue on with Down. I'm absolutely going to continue on with the Illegals. We have been messing with some new material with Superjoint, and like I said, I feel like we have some 4 or 5 good ideas. They definitely need some meat on the skeleton, so to speak. But as far as seeing the light of day, I would have to say the songs would have to develop a little bit better. I need to absolutely demo some vocals to get a feel for it, but I think that there's a grand chance that, sure, we might do another record, and so will Down, and so will the Illegals, and hey, that keeps me working, that keeps me moving forward, and man, in this life, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, you're not stopping. It's been a great career, Phil. A great chat. Love talking to you at Heavy Montreal. Enjoyed today's chat, despite the fact that the power shut off and we had to do this in 2 different parts. But continued success, continued happiness, the whole thing. You're just a great person and talent, and very much enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, man, right back at you. And, I couldn't have done it without you, because you asked great questions. And I wish you would really write a very positive...
Oh, absolutely.
...fucking
piece.
Article there, and any fucking time you need me, any questions you'd ever have, and whatever, man, feel overly free to ask me anytime, 24/7. I got your back, baby.
Thank you.
And it's always a pleasure on my end, too.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I do have one completely random question that I want to... There's a band that you toured with back in, I think it was 92, on the Skid Row Pantera bill. In Canada, I saw you with a band called the Killer Dwarfs. They've become some of my best friends. In fact, we all went to a Whitesnake show on the weekend. Just what was that tour like? Because that's when I saw you at the Verdun Auditorium out in Montreal, the Killer Dwarfs Skid Row Pantera tour. that was sort of your first major tour, right? I mean, for you had done some club shows and some smaller stuff, but this was sort of one of the bigger ones for you, right?
That was definitely one of the bigger ones, but really our first tour ever of the United States was with Suicidal Tendencies and Exodus, so that was pretty big too.
That was pretty big.
Big.
But how was that Dwarves?
Skid Row was in the arenas. So that was a whole different experience. But the Killer Dwarfs, let me tell you what, I was a fan already because I had their first record back in the day
nice.
with Are You Ready and all those songs and shit like that. And come to find out, the singer's birthday is the same day as mine, so I want to wish him a fucking happy birthday too. And hey man, I'm a Killer Dwarfs fan. Even though I think that when we played with them, with Skid Row, those might have been some of the more rough Pantera shows, in my opinion, just because the crowd really didn't know who we were yet. You know, we were still really being introduced to a massive audience that wasn't hip yet, you know, because we weren't hip yet. People, you know, were still learning about us, but luckily it was the Vulgar Display of Power tour, which definitely, you know, as we went along on that tour, Skid Row, you know, had us chalked in for one leg of the tour, but it went so well and we got so tight with those guys because they were dynamite dudes. They had us on for a second leg of a tour. So I think the Vulgar Display on that second leg of the tour really started picking up steam, and we could feel it by, you know, the end of the tour. So really a lot of credit goes out to Skid Row because they had the guts to take a band like Pantera out, and if it weren't for Skid Row, there's a chance it would have taken Pantera a lot longer to break through to a massive audience. And really, if it weren't for Skid Row, we wouldn't have been. Really, they gave us the biggest break ever, and I love them for it to this day. And I'm still tight with a lot of them. Matter of fact, the guitar player, Snake Sabo, is the damn manager for Downs.
Yep.
So yeah, we all keep tight. Me and Sebastian are fucking still cool as shit, and fucking every time I see the rest of the guys, it's all old jokes and fucking cutting up. So I got a lot of love for them dudes.
Yeah, and that tour was essential in me discovering Pantera because when you know, being in Montreal, this was sort of pre-internet, getting to know bands at the push of a button, and you know,
definitely.
I went to the Verdun Auditorium and they said Pantera is opening up for Skid Row, and I went, who? And you played, and it wasn't, you know, that sort of melodic rock stuff. It was in your face, and I went, oh, who the hell are they? And that's where I got to pay attention or take notice. And then after that, I went, okay, I went and discovered you guys. But if it wasn't for that show, who knows? You might have just slipped between the cracks, and I would never have known who the hell you were. So no, that was very, very important, that tour, for at least for me, for discovering you.
And you can thank Skid Row for that because, like I said, they were the band that really helped break Pantera in. And I'll say this too, previously to that, we did a European tour with opening for Judas Priest on our first time to Europe, and we were hated. No one got it. We were stared at and arms folded and shit thrown at us.
The piss bottles. They love piss bottles in the UK.
Yeah, but that would have caused a brawl. We didn't get any piss bottles. At the time, we would have took the fucking microphone stands to them. We were so fucking. Back then, everybody was out to get us in our minds, so it was like, you know, that would have been brawling shit. But still, one thing we learned on that tour was how to conduct ourselves as a working unit, not just the band, the road crew as well. And I'm talking about the entire nucleus of Pantera, the band, road crew, all of our tight guys that have stayed with us through all the years. We saw how Judas Priest road crew operated, and then later on we saw how Skid Row's road crew operated. And I'll say it right now, Judas Priest road crew were the biggest fucking dicks in the world. And I wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. And we saw that side of things. And then when we went to the Skid Row camp and did the tour with them, their road crew was some of the most helpful, cool, easygoing, and did I say helpful 3-4 times? Yeah. Those motherfuckers helped us out. They were kind. They were polite. They fucking were fun. They were nice people. And that's where really we modeled our entire entity after, man. You know, it was like, you know what? When we bring bands out, when we're able to, when we reach that point and when we have opening bands, we want to be, or we want to emulate how the Skid Row camp operated, because we definitely know what we hated about the Judas Priest fucking tour and what we loved about the Skid Row tour. And that, my friend, was very important as well right there. And that's why we demanded, you know, bands that opened for us later on in life to be able to bring their friends up on stage, have their fucking whole crew up on stage, and invite them out. You know, fucking tell them, hey, fuck it, well, don't just stand there. Come stand by the fucking mic stands and fucking sing the backup, sing songs with us. Stage dive, go fucking bananas. Do what you got to do to have a good time, because guess what? You ain't gonna bug us. You know, all we're doing is playing songs and jamming, bro. The more action, the better. So that was a big lesson right there, man.
Just to pick up on the helpful part, do you mean helpful in terms of they gave you lights and stage and full sound, or helpful as in more of a mentor where they came to you and said, okay, guys, this is how you organize a tour. This is how you organize the financial. This is how you... Was it that kind of helpful, or was it just like, hey, you want full lights? Pfft, no problem. You want to use full... I mean, or is it sort of everything?
I would say a little bit of both, man, okay. Because really the second part of your question, you learn things like that by watching the example that Skid Row set, you know, and how their road crew operated, and our guys working closely and hand in hand with them. You know, those were the great lessons that we learned from them, and the professionalism and being nice on top of it, being pleasant people to work with.
Gotcha.
That is very important. And, oh, geez, man, everything down to me, you know, my personal
demeanor.
Well, here you go. Here's a quick fucking thing. Big Val, who was our security guy for many years, he was a security guy originally for Sebastian Bach.
Right.
They had a falling out, so we were already touring with Big Val. So after we toured with Skid Row, that's when we hired Big Val. And I think I was going through something at the time, and I would wake up in a bad mood and walk in and fucking be short with everybody and just go to the dressing room and brood and fucking, you know, pout all fucking day like a big pussy. And Big Val came in and he said to me one day, he goes, "Hey, Phil, a word of advice. When you walk into the fucking goddamn gig and you got a scowl on your face and you are short with everybody and you're not very nice, it sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you walk into the room and you say, "What's happening, everybody?" Just say hello, "Good morning, how you doing?" And be pleasant with people. That too sets the tone for the day. And he made me realize that being nice and kind to people, especially your own damn road crew and the band that you're touring with, to be pleasant around these people paid off a whole lot more than being a fucking total dick asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, he caught me early in the game on that, even through the worst, like you say, when my back fucking blew out. It's very tough to be upbeat and positive in those days, but still, it's very easy to walk into a gig and tell everybody good morning, ask them how they're doing, and then, go disappear into your dressing room and fucking suffer for the rest of the day until it was time to get on stage. As long as you made your rounds, stick your head in the opening band dressing room and say, "What's happening, fellas? How y'all doing? What's the word today?" That shit's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to this very day, I take that little talk to heart. I wake up with it in my mind, and now it's absolutely 1,000% automatic that you just say hello to everybody and what's happening, give them a smile, talk, shoot the shit, and fucking just be fucking cool, man. It's not that tough.
Yeah, and I gotta say, you definitely learned the lesson, because the number of times I've met you and interviewed you, you've always just been fantastic. Just like today, you let me call you back after we had the power go off, and a lot of people would have just blown the interview off and said, "Hey, tough luck," but no, you stuck it out with me, and I truly appreciate that. So thank you. And
Well, see, that it's important to me. I think it's very important, that you go through life and be as nice as you possibly can, to people, because in truth, with today and the internet and all that shit, you know it and I know it. The comment section and shit like that are absolutely geared for assholes.
Yep.
1,000%. Internet tough guys, internet assholes who, instead of either not leaving a comment at all or leaving a pleasant comment, they feel it's their obligation to write something snarky or fucking some smart ass fucking comment, some asshole thing, because it makes them feel better about their own shitty lives, and it shows, and it comes across. So I'm gonna keep on keeping on with being pleasant, giving people the time of day, because they deserve it. My world is no better than yours or no worse than yours. And can I do what you do in every facet of life? Fuck no. Just like you can't do what I do, I can't do what you do. So I look at people on equal terms, man. I don't know about everybody's life. I don't know who's had it the roughest. I don't give a shit. Stick your hand out, shake someone's hand, talk to them for a few minutes. If it's important enough, then fucking great. But the negativity will never go away There's nothing you nor I can do about that. So, look, you know, the fact that there are dicks on the internet, what are we supposed to do about it? You know, I'm just gonna move forward and be myself and be cool, and let the assholes be assholes. You know, because they're always gonna be there. Fuck them.
Yeah, and you know, the way I've always looked at it is, if some guy on the internet calls me an asshole, or some guy at the street, or somebody in a car drives by and says asshole, it's like, meh. But as long as my wife, my son, and my daughter don't, that's all that matters. And the day that one of them do, then they don't have the problem. I have the problem because I must have done something wrong. So
Exactly,
you know,
dude. You nailed it. You fucking nailed it. You know, when your friends call you a fucking asshole, then you know what? It's time to listen.
Yep.
It's time to listen up, take what they say seriously, and make some fucking changes. So, man, I'm on board with you 1,000%.
Absolutely.
Anybody else, you can just brush that shit off and say, fuck off.
Yeah, who cares? They don't matter. But last time I saw you was at Heavy Montreal. This year you're not there, but hopefully in 2016 you will come back, because that big stage is meant for you and for Superjoint and for the Illegals and Down. And Phil, just always a pleasure.
Dude, anytime, like I say, 24/7, I got you, baby. And thank you so much for the interview.
Absolutely,
man.
And thank you.
Excellent interview.
Thank you. Have a good night, and you know, if you ever need anything else, drop me a line. I'm always happy to promote and plug and interview and whatever. Just you know, we need to help each other in this business. It goes both ways.
Dude, agreed, 100%, and that's why I gave you this interview as long as it took, man, because it goes both ways, 100%.
Thank you, Phil.
You got it, buddy.
Bye-bye now.
All right, see you.
Cheers. There you have it, my interview with Phil Anselmo of Superjoint. What a great chat. So much great information. He talks about Pantera, Rex, Vinnie, power metal, his influences, just absolute delight. Daryl, you promised us a couple of road stories from the Pantera, Killer Dwarfs, Skid Row tour. What's a good one?
Well,
one that we can put over the air.
I don't know. Well, there's a lot of different weird things that happen on that tour. Some dysfunctional, some not. One thing that I have a funny story actually about Dimebag. Actually, I had a camcorder. I just got my first kind of Sony camcorder back then to film things backstage, and I was filming Dimebag talking to two people in the stands of the arena at one show, and I still have this footage up to show you if you come up to Toronto. And I think he knew I was filming him. I was filming him from a distance, and I was zooming in on him, and he started picking his nose, right? And like really picking his nose hard. He was in there digging in there, and then he started flinging it. Right, I got this footage of Dimebag doing this, and I know he did it on purpose because he seen me in the distance filming it.
That's
like
great.
What? Yeah, I've never showed it to anybody. I never watch it. It's on a little thing, but I just
put
came
that
back
on YouTube.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that, to tell you the truth. I could have done it a million times. I just, for some reason, it's kind of sacred to me. I have a bunch of footage like that, and I have footage of Gene Simmons telling jokes. We're in the studio telling these weird Polish jokes and stuff. I got a ton of stuff. I'll show it to you, Mitch, when you come up.
I'll have a look at that. Mark, in case you didn't know, the Killer Dwarfs were in the studio next to Kiss when they were doing the Revenge album in '92, I guess it was.
Now, is that where you guys took that picture of Gene Simmons in those short shorts that Mitch posts every now and again?
Yes.
Yeah, man. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's footage that I saw, and I took a screenshot.
What was cool about that, Bob Ezrin was a producer, and Andy Johns was our producer. So Ezrin would come strolling into our control room with a guitar, and he'd start singing songs, and just to see Andy Johns and Bob Ezrin together kind of in the same room, we're standing there with them. It was just like kind of surreal moments like that. And then Paul Stanley come walking in, and I don't know, man. I value those days.
Talk about a summit meeting. Now, Mark, I know you got to get going, so we got to wrap up. Just to remind you, Heavy Montreal takes place August 7th, 8th, and 9th at Parc Jean
Yes.
Drapeau. Korn, Faith No More, Extreme, and a whole bunch of others. Mark, where can people find you?
You can check me out on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Talking Metal. And I'm also at talkingmetal.com.
Yeah, and of course, One on One is part of the Talking Metal digital family. And Daryl, where can we find you online?
I'm on Twitter at Daryl Dwarf and Facebook too, Daryl Dwarf. And I got my own website too, which is my real name, darylmiller.com or daryldwarf.com.
Right, and it's Miller with an A, not
it's
an E.
A, right, thank you. It's Millar, yeah.
Millar. We'll call it Millar. Daryl Millar.
Yeah.
No.
It's Scottish, man. Miller is Scottish, ER is English, to tell you the truth. That's what that's about.
Well, hey, thank you both for doing this tonight. And of course, you can find me at Mitch Lafon on Twitter. Daryl, always a pleasure. Mark, always a pleasure.
Yes.
Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Okay, nice
soon,
meeting
Mitch.
you, Mark.
Thanks.
Take care, man.